Welcome to Dreamers to Leaders, Keeping It Real with Melody podcast. Melody is a born dreamer who started from being a flight attendant and worked her way up into now a tech fashion trendsetter, thought leader, and seasoned entrepreneur in multiple successful ventures. This podcast is for the awakened dreamer. Industry icons will share their humble beginnings up to the leaders they are today. Let's all learn and be inspired. Together, we can all prosper.
Hello and welcome to the Dreamers to Leaders podcast. It's a podcast for the dreamers, but more importantly, the doers. I'm your host, Melody. Today, we will dive in the world of leadership consultant. Joining us here today is Anna Libo. She studied in 3 European countries, originally from Ukraine, and currently living in Reykjavik in Iceland. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Anna Libo. Hello, Anna. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Melody. Super pumped to be with you here.
Wonderful. Imagine from Los Angeles to Reykjavik in Iceland. How cool is that?
Yeah, I feel so grateful for all these conversations and the possibilities we're having on a daily basis.
So let's start. I'm excited to hear your story, Anna. Take us back to the time when you were starting out with your career as a leadership consultant. How was that like for you?
I would probably roll a bit back even further with the starting my career as the project manager, because that's where I started in the corporate world. I am originally from Ukraine and I moved to Sweden to do my master's degree in project management there. And as a newly grad, I got a job, or actually while still finishing my master thesis, I got a job and started working as the project coordinator in a big international company or global company. And project coordinator is a kind of a right hand for a project manager. And those project managers whom I was helping, they were handling projects with hundreds of people under them. And I was coming there, I was 23 years old, I freshly graduated, and quite often the only female, the youngest, and quite often the only person with international background around the table. So that is where my career started.
Uh-huh. So with regards to that journey, being an immigrant, being the youngest in the group, being a female in a mostly male-dominated environment. How did you overcome those challenges, Anna?
I think there were 2 things I want to point out here. First one is the curiosity. I have it quite naturally, and the more I've been working on my personal development, the more it grew within me. The curiosity about why people think the way they think, why people say the things they say. So just trying to understand their point of view and their background was really helping me to go through some tough moments and some weird comments and the kind of conversations that probably you would not consider relevant in the workplace. And second part was actually having the support. So smart enough I was to find a support team and have both male colleagues who were more senior than me, and female colleagues, maybe not in the same role, but somewhere in the same office, to vent, to prepare for the meetings with, to just discuss the situation. So those 2 things, first, trying to really always to understand the others without judgment, just seeing like, okay, what do they see that I don't? And where does that come from? And the second part is really to have some kind of support environment that really helped me go through a lot of moments.
Being open, having that flexibility and having an open mind in pretty much everything kind of led you to this journey, right? So you mentioned support. How is it like? You mentioned that you have a child, you have family, a home. The work-life balance, which is a juggle that a lot of women entrepreneurs face. How does that work for you?
It's a struggle.
Or is there such a thing?
It's a struggle. I won't say that I'm a superhuman. I have the challenges as well. The thing for me is I haven't been believing in this work-life balance for a while. For me, work is such a passionate part of me that it's not just kind of separate. It's not easy to separate it from the rest of me. It's just part of me. So I was like, I'm more into the using the term of work-life integration that is on the market, so to say, these days. But what I use the balance in is for the inner balance, and that's what I am teaching my clients as well, to find that inner core that actually helps you get through the challenges of having a lot of balls in the air and trying to prioritize things daily. So we're talking about the inner balance there. But if we talk about me, I have a 2-year-old daughter. So I said that I have 2 kids, one human baby and one business baby. And it is quite challenging, to be honest. And the thing is that I have been prioritizing those two, my family and my business, quite a lot. And I have realized in the past couple of months, I've been not prioritizing myself, which is ironic because that's what I've been teaching a lot of my clients all the time.
Going back to what you said, I think really you nailed it. If you have your work as your passion, right, and if you have that convergence of your passion, your purpose, and your work, then somehow the balance or the imbalance kind of works, right?
Yeah, it is. And I think that's important that you find that passion, and it's possible for every job in the world. The statistics are showing that the 30% of people in whichever job you take, they are happy in that job. Or statistically, there are 30% of people who will be happy in that job. So it is about trial and error and a lot of reflection and a lot of self-development that actually can help you find your job that is actually a fun playground for you.
So you mentioned trial and error. During that journey of you with your career moves, what has been your biggest learning with the mistakes and the error that you have experienced?
I'm so struggling every time I'm asked about the failures or errors, because they're always learnings for me in the end. And I think my husband is so much better to remember my kind of tough moments than me. And I'm like, I've never been in this challenging situation before. And he's like, remember this and that project. And the thing
it's a learning. So every failure for you is an opportunity to learn. Now let's talk about looking at your web page. You have mentioned zone of genius. What do you mean by that? And is that part of how you coach, or how part of your consulting, finding that zone of genius? Can you elaborate on that, Anna?
Absolutely. I believe that everyone has their own zone of genius, and that's the space in which they have alignment between what they do and what they like, and with that is aligned with their vision, what kind of human being they want to be, what kind of legacy they want to build in this world, what do they want to leave behind themselves. So finding this alignment, being clear on that vision, and having the tools to follow that on a daily is what I call the zone of genius. When you are able to really be in that zone and in that alignment as often as possible and as much as possible. And of course, life happens and you're thrown out of that zone. But with the tools that I teach my clients, and what the second part of the question was, Melody, that whether that's what I work with. Yes, that's a big part of what I work with my clients. Finding the tools to identify that, oh, now I'm thrown out of my zone, and having the ways of getting there as soon as possible and staying there. This is what we do.
As they say, true genius is not about doing extraordinary things. It's about doing the ordinary things in an extraordinary way, right?
Yeah,
so how do you cultivate that in your consulting work? How do you cultivate the genius within with your work?
I think you tapped on a very, very important part, Melody, with the extraordinary ways of doing ordinary things. We quite often think if we need to follow our vision, it has to be some huge event in our life happening, or we need to take a lot of effort and in our enormous leaps, but it's really those tiny micro steps and those actions and our thoughts that we have every single minute, every single day, that actually create that huge result in the end. They compound.
So you're right about the baby steps. And I think there's a saying about the creation of 1,000 forests begins with a single acorn, right? So sometimes you don't really need to see the whole staircase. Just take that first step, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So that's kind of how you help your clients by
exactly. We really break it down. So we look at the big goals. So we work a lot on identifying their values and their vision, but then we break it down. Okay, where are you at the moment? How would the first step look like? Don't even look at 5 steps ahead. Look at the first step. How can you get tiny little bit closer to that vision of yours? So, and then I hold them accountable to taking that step. And then we actually practice it. We get in the reps so that they actually build the muscle of doing it automatically. And only then we take the next tiny little baby step. So that's how we work.
Yeah, they say to make a real change in an organization, there needs to be that behavioral change. And how do you do that? And it's by doing one baby step at a time, right? And doing that consistently. You touched on legacy, and I think most leaders, if those are your clientele, that's truly why they become a leader. They want to create a legacy, build a legacy. How do you cultivate that, or how do you help your clients create that lasting legacy?
I think it's partly about learning about yourself and really knowing how you function as a human being, because you can't be a good leader and get a team on board and lead them towards building or helping you build your legacy if you don't understand yourself. When we've done the homework on your side and you understand how you function, what are your actions and reactions and emotions, then you take yourself out of the equation and you have the resources to help your team to really create their zone of genius. So this is a big part of what we do.
I agree. Finding that your unique ability, and as you said, there's that zone of genius. In addition, there is that uniqueness in everyone, and that comes with knowing your unique strengths and weakness. And knowing your strength is what you pretty much harness and utilize to help your team, and then complement that with someone that is strong on what your weakness is, right?
I think you're tapping into 2 very interesting points here, like Melody. The first one is about knowing your strength, and the pattern that I see with my clients, a lot of them are high performers who have, unfortunately, that some way of the imposter syndrome. So no matter what the strengths are, they don't pay attention to them. And big chunk of our work is me actually banging that into their head. Like, dude, you are great at this. Lady, you are amazing at this. And look at the progress you've done just now in a couple of weeks, and so on and so forth. So really empowering them and making them used to see their progress and to see their positive sides, instead of just focusing on what they have not achieved yet, what they have not improved yet, and so on. This is a big part of our work that actually brings my clients to the next level.
So the imposter syndrome, that is a very interesting concept. And I think, anything that is fake or anything that's inauthentic, somehow it's going to haunt you, and it's going to not going to help, if you're just not trying to be you. So learning you, I guess it boils down to again, you as a human being, what makes you tick, and really knowing that versus trying to be someone that you're not. And I think that's the pitfall of a lot of everyone, regardless, leader or not, right?
Yeah, exactly. You're so right with that, Melody. And actually, I remember the second part. What I wanted to say is about the weaknesses, and you mentioned the strengths of the others using those. This is something that I see with the great leaders who I interview for my podcast, that they actually hire for their weaknesses, and that's what I try to do with my company as well. Whenever I'm looking for a new person, it's about thinking like, okay, I don't want to have another Anna. I want to have someone who really kind of vibes with the job that I feel bored about with, or with that I just am so slow and not interested in, and so on. So it's really about finding like, okay, like I don't have to be the best at everything that has to be done in my company, but I have to be the best in bringing the best out of the other people in my company.
So yeah, nobody wants a mini me, right? A mini me or a clone you. You want someone with the right that would bring the right synergy to your organization. I agree. With regards to the biggest difference that you've seen with your clients, so not working with them to working with them. What areas of development or progress have you seen with your clients?
It's several. Quite often they notice something in their relationships at home with their kids or their spouses, which is unusual because they come to me with their leadership assignments, right, and their work related issues. So this is something that they take home with them, and that's what I love, how they start applying the learnings from our work to the other areas and the other situations in their lives, not only those that we kind of have worked through and built the muscles for, but they see that they're more present, they're a bit more curious, and that really eliminates a lot of misunderstandings, miscommunications, and misalignments with expectations, because I think quite a lot of us assuming instead of being curious leads to miscommunication. So that's one part. And the other one is quite big, that is quite big to me, is really releasing that self-doubt.
Oh, can you repeat that? What was
The
that?
self-doubt, that they
Self-doubt.
don't doubt themselves anymore. So quite often people come to me and I'm like, okay, we're going to work on your self-esteem, because you really need to understand that you are good as you are. You don't need to achieve all those things to be good and to feel that you're enough. And they're like, hold on, wait a minute. I need to be the achiever. Like, I got that far in my career. There are a lot of people depending on me now. I need to stay like at the high performing level. And I'm like, you're not going to stop performing at that level. It's just that you're going to enjoy it more, and you'll actually have much more energy because you're not wasting energy on doubting yourself. So you'll have even more energy to perform, to be a good leader and a good spouse, a good parent, and a good community member.
I think it's no surprise that if you learn how to lead and you start from leading within, then it starts from it'll also boils down to how you interact with the people at home. So I guess that's why you've seen that difference with people that have learned to not just lead others but lead themselves, right?
And actually, we often I'll just tap into that no matter in which dimension you lead, one to many, one to one, you always lead one, the dimension of one, as I say, and it's self-leadership, what you're talking about, leadership within. And
I agree. I think that's prime. That's it's hard to lead anyone if you can't lead yourself, and I think it also boils down to having self-discipline, right? Yeah. Self-discipline, self-mastery, all that good stuff that comes from knowing thyself. Let's shift gears a little bit here. Here in Hollywood, there is, it's been controversial with regards to gender pay inequality. Do you see that there as well? I think there was statistics that showed around there's 25% difference in pay between male and female in around 2015. 2020, that has narrowed to around 19%. Why do you think is that? And do you see any solution or propose some sort of a solution to this gap?
It's a very interesting question and quite philosophical. I would say that my spontaneous answer would be that it often happens because we don't know what we don't know. A lot of things have been happening the way they have been happening, right? Women have been busy with the families, with taking the care of the household, and men have been doing business, building the society, and so on. So it's just the way how we used to see in things. And yes, of course, now some things are changing, or a lot of things are changing, right? The career path have opened, the workplaces have opened for women, but a lot of things are still those rooted patterns that we don't understand, both women and men, that we don't really realize that we are following the footsteps of our fathers and grandfathers and mothers and grandmothers, and we are keeping ourselves behind in that development. And I don't mean me, we women, I mean we as a society, that we kind of don't notice things that would help us get to the next level to close that gap.
So maybe, so yeah, it is. It's still a global problem, right? And but the good news is it has really not narrowed down. From 25% to 19%, and hopefully, as new leaders come out, and now leaders are more aware, and women are more aware that they need somehow that equality to happen, because it's the same work. As a matter of fact, maybe there's more juggling that happens with women, right? And yet there's that pay differential between the genders. Now, there's a little trivia here. Did you know that 4.9% of Fortune 500 companies are women, and only 2% in Standard and Poor 500 companies are women? Why do you think is that? And you think that do you see a trend that somehow that is going to increase soon?
I think it is going to increase, but I think it still will take a generation. So our kids with you, Melody, they will probably see the bigger change in that, and we'll get closer to equality there, be it 40-60 or 50-50. But I think it's really taking this kind of generational it's a transformation that takes this generational change, so to say.
So there is a crisis. Crisis management is something that has been a word, has been a leadership term for the longest time. But with the pandemic, now it has taken a different turn, right? So in terms of things and steps and strategies that leaders have taken, what have you seen in terms of what they've done to flourish in this crisis, or taking this crisis and turning it into an opportunity? Is there like a common denominator that you've seen among leaders that have actually done that?
There are several, and actually just before our interview, I was reading an article at Harvard Business Review that showed that women seem to be more appreciated as leaders during this crisis. So in the 2020 pandemic, leaders...
Can you repeat that part? Sorry, Anna.
Female leaders have been seen as good leaders more than male leaders in the times of crisis. And the article was talking about the glass cliff as the as the term of glass ceiling that many people know. There is a term of glass cliff where women are often thrown into the situations to save the situations in the companies when there is a crisis. And apparently that works better than with men. And they're talking about
glass cliff. I haven't heard of that. Glass ceiling, yes. So interesting. So with a glass cliff, women seem to know how to navigate that that type of situation better.
That's what they're showing. And actually this term was also new to me, so I need to explore it more. As I said, I just read this article before. And it was interesting to see that the appreciation of female leaders has increased during the crisis. And I would say that quite a lot of that goes into the empathy, into curiosity, into being able to put yourself in the shoes of the others, because we women are a bit more naturally prone to do that, or talented to do that, or taught to be that and brought up to do that a bit more naturally. So this is a big part of that. And also the adjustments that was shown quite a lot in the studies during the pandemic times in the leadership community, that the ability to change and to adjust, but at the same time keep the vision as a leader are the important things to stay on board and keep everyone on board to get through those stormy seas. And I think we women are a bit more used to doing that because we need to juggle more things with the family, with work, right? And trying to also keep ourselves beautiful and whatever. So we have a bit more hats on ourselves quite often historically, and that probably helps us, for good or for bad, to be better leaders in the crisis.
So let me jump in on what you said about empathy, and with this pandemic. There's also studies that have been shown that men now are more empathetic on what women have to go through and juggle now that they were kind of forced to stay home and do work at home. So now they see and have a better appreciation of what women actually go through. So imagine all their life they have been just looking at this path of work, home, and what have you. But with women, there's kids doing virtual learning, making sure there's dinner and all that. So all those things that are part of the dynamics of a working mother. So again, there is that empathy and more appreciation. So that's maybe a positive thing that has happened from this pandemic. So let's talk about common denominators among leaders that you've seen are present in those that are flourishing and thriving. What makes a good leader, Anna?
So we covered a couple of them already. One of them is being able to put yourself in the shoes of your employees and actually be able to focus on their individual needs. That was also another shift that people have seen, or research has seen, to be appreciated among leaders. Before the pre-pandemic times, the good or optimal focus was focus on the deliverables 60% of the time of a leader and 40% on individual needs. And during the pandemic, that shifted and actually became vice versa. So the most successful leaders are the ones who focus 60% of their time on the individual needs of their team and employees and 40% on the deliverables. So this is one of the parts. The other part we also covered a bit already is the ability to keep the vision of the company alive, no matter what, and be this visionary leader who keeps reminding people about what are we here for? Why are we still coming to job, even if it's checking into the Zoom from our dining table at home? So keeping this connection from today to the ultimate goal that we as a company want to achieve. That's another thing. And then again, being adaptable to change, or like being ready to change, because change is inevitable, right? It's not a matter of if it happens, it's a matter of when it happens. And this year it has happened to the vast majority of the companies, for good or for bad.
And with regards to common mistakes, so you've seen the ingredients to make them successful. How about those common thread of pitfalls that you've seen among leaders?
I think one of them is trying to really continue as it was, so just moving everything virtually. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it, Melody. Actually, it is being stuck. But what I was thinking about really is like having the same meeting structures, for example, as you had before the pandemic, just moving it to online tools. That doesn't work. We're getting more tired because we can't read all each other's facial expressions and body language just as effectively when everyone is like a small rectangulars on the screen, right? As if we're in the room. And there are a lot of other factors, and just the environment, being at home, there are still more distractors than just coming into the conference room in your office and being able to focus on what we're discussing. So there were a lot of shifts that people had to make. And one of those six more failure common denominators is trying to just transfer everything from the physical office to online world.
So lastly, you've also touched on values, right? So how does having a clear definition of a leader's value help them with their strategies and with directions and how they lead?
Since I work with that, I really am a believer that the values are the defining factors. The key here is to really do the job and pick the right ones. And the second part is to actually habitualize them. So to make them a habit and a practice, that you actually practice those values on a daily basis. So how we do it with the defining values for my clients, they Google some list of values or characteristics of human being, and there are a lot of lists on Google. If you just go and search, they provide you hundreds of options. And what I make them do as a homework is to go through those hundreds and pick up, just write down all of those that resonate, and then start narrowing down. And they have that list, and they have that list, and they have that list until they come to 3. And just trying to pick 3 is a lot of work on reflection on what is important for me, what is maybe overlapping here, and so on. So that's a big part, and that gives them clarity on why are they here actually. And then the second part is what we do is setting reminders. So it could be alarms on your phone that you label with those value words that you see them on the screen. It could be post-its on your desktop. It could be a post-it or some card, or you ask your kids to draw a painting and you put it on the fridge. So every time you come to the fridge, you see your value words. So they are in front of you every day. And also I always work with a daily reflection with my clients. They need to answer some particular questions in the evening in a journal. And that's what I suggest to them as well. Answering questions, what did I do well today? What did I do less well? What's my learning in that? And what do I need help with? Make those 3 value words a check-in point as well. Did I act present, for example? Was I empathetic? And so on, whatever your words are. So by those daily check-ins on multiple occasions, you are getting used to be that person you want to be. And you start aligning your actions and your thoughts towards that person.
Sounds like a very effective technique, Anna.
It works.
So let's end it with this. So how can our audience support you? How can they find you?
If you want to reach out to me, I'm Anna Liebel, Liebel on LinkedIn. And you can also go to annaliebel.com and drop me a note, an email through the contact form there. And I'll be happy to answer any of your questions.
I had fun chatting with you, Anna. Thank you so much for gracing our show, especially with our time difference, right?
Yeah, it's a bedtime story for me today, but it was a pleasure.
All right, and so thank you again, and more power to you. And for all the dreamers out there, keep believing. You got this. Till next time.